So, welcome to Satsang. As you know, if you have any questions, you can pose your question by writing it in the chat box or by speaking the question. And if you are watching on YouTube, you can also pose a brief question by writing it in the chat box. Just a few words. The expression of the self is a silent expression. It is the silence within the words, behind the words, beyond the words. That is the expression of our true nature, the expression of what we truly are, the expression of truth, of reality. We recognize the expression of the self within, so to speak, a silent recognition, sort of a harmonious vibration, a harmonious recognition. And we can rest as that silence. We can rest in and as the stillness, the silence that somehow reverberates within us. Sometimes during our day, there is this silence that arises. Maybe we are reading a Rumi poem, or we are contemplating some words of Jean Klein or Shankara. And there is that inner silence that resonates, that sort of comes into the foreground. And that's meditation. That's meditation. Without any doing, nothing that you're doing. And you can like sort of soak as that, rest in and as that. Or you could be out for a walk in nature or looking over a field. In your contemplation, there will be more and more, or there is more and more of that silence, that spontaneous, uncaused peace of being that blooms within you as you. It's so simple and effortless. The mind is completely still. Not looking out at anything. All is said in that silence. All is expressed. Within this silence, there is no opposites. There are no opposites. There isn't a me and another. There isn't what's next. There isn't what was, what will be. And there's peace and fulfillment without any object. Fulfillment without any form, without any thought. A sort of transparency that is a whole within itself. That does not know any other, that is not the movement of the mind, that is free of the impression of time and space. And in that formless and causeless silence, all is one. One could say we are one, all is one. But even that is saying too much. This stillness, this transparency has no owner. It does not belong to me or to another or to you or to him or to her. There's no ownership to that which is the business of being. No guardian, there isn't a guardian of that. No worries or concern about holding on to it, holding on to something. No concern about losing. Because there is no one in that stillness, in that presence, in that transparency. There is no one that is a part of it, apart from it. One could say that is the heart of the teaching. Everything else is mind. But mind does not necessarily signify ignorance. Ignorance is a sort of forgetfulness of what I truly is. And in many cases, it goes beyond the forgetfulness into imagining that I refers to a body mind, to some object, to something which is a mentation, cementation, imagination. And in that imagination, in that body of thought, which is at its core rooted in the I thought, just that I am something. I am some body, some mind, some form in time and space that I thought, the initial I thought. that somehow embeds itself in the perception and becomes a sort of a dictator of all perceptions, the proprietor. But this I that is imagined and is felt and believed is nowhere to be found. Outside of thought is nowhere to be found. What is it that is? What is it that speaks? What is it that hears? What is it that is? What is it that right now perceives? The reality of perception, what is it? The reality of I, what is it? Who could tell you but yourself? You are this I, aren't you? What is this I that you are? Yes. What is it that you are? What is that I that you are? What is it that is asking this question? What is it that is looking? What is the I am? The truth of it, the reality of it, not the costumes, not the uniforms, not the outfit, but behind the outfit. Outfit free. What is the I? What am I? You know because you are that. You are the I. You are I. I am I. What is it? I. Free of thought, free of any download, before any download. Right now, in this moment. Not what you imagine, not what you remember, not what you feel, not what seems to be. What is the isness? The images that arise on the screen, whatever it is, anything you perceive, what perceives it? What perceives right now? What is it right now that is undeniable, that is absolute, cannot be defined by thought or by feelings? Can you deny the I? Whatever you call it, doesn't matter. Presence, beingness, or silence. What is it? It's obviously not something, because something, whatever that something is perceived. Is perceived. What perceives? cannot be something or someone or somebody or a thought or a feeling. It cannot be anything that is perceived. But there is the reality that we use the word reality, whatever word you want to use, there is the isness of beingness that perceives. Consciousness, awareness, presence, Brahman, whatever word you use, does not matter. God. No words are needed, no words. The peace, the stillness of the source is not downstream. Happiness, well-being, freedom, it is not downstream. Downstream is the personal story, the personal adventures. You know, we are speaking about what is the most obvious and how odd it is that it is hidden while it is the most obvious. It's hidden in a world of thoughts and feelings. And at the core of all these thoughts and feelings, there is this I that is a me. I, this person, this and that happened to me, and he and she did this, and I shouldn't have done this, and he or she should not have done that. Like a beehive. Thoughts and feelings, thoughts and feelings. And we're trying to organize these thoughts and feelings so we can have an organized life. Good luck. Whatever you can organize, can get disorganized, right? Whatever you can discover can be lost. You do not discover yourself. You awaken from the illusion that you are somebody. You do not discover truth. You awaken from the illusion, which is the falsehood of believing yourself to be immortal body, mind in time and space. It's a process of looking through and seeing that I am not something that appears. I am not something that is perceived. That I am not something that is felt. The I precedes that, precedes any arising. To see that, to see it over and over, that identifying with an arising, identifying with a thought, with a feeling, with the body, with a perception, overlooks that which is not in the perception, that which perceives, that which is that which one could say precedes the perception, although it's not preceding in the conventional use of the term, because preceding refers to time. Well, if you have any questions, anything you would like to discuss or look into. Is the sound good? Are you able to? Taha, is the sound good? Should have asked that earlier, but
Sound is good on my end.
okay.
Yes, it's very good.
Okay, hold on.
Sounds good.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, Magdi.
Hey, Ananda.
Something I'd like to ask you about. A friend of mine recently said, "You create a lot of drama around you," or something like that. And I said, "Really? I don't feel. Doesn't feel like drama. Like there's any drama, really." And she said, "You don't experience drama, but other people around you feel the drama." I think she's referring to my, you maybe call it womanizing, that I have a quite a close and intimate way of being with a lot of my friends, and that it doesn't feel dramatic to me, but it can to other people. And so that rang true, and I just it got me thinking about, if you don't feel attached or clinging or lacking or anything, but just celebrating, but celebrating kind of effusively, it can have that effect on other people that start creating attachments and like that. Just thought I'd bring that out and see if you had any response.
Yeah. I would say that if more than one person point to you something about yourself that may not be obvious to you or may not resonate for you, I would say it would be a good idea to take a look, somehow to ask ask for some more sharing,
Mm-hmm.
to see what is being perceived by others.
Yes.
If there are more than if there are more than one of you that are pointing that to you. Now, in relating, there is sort of a level at which we're relating, which is via the thinking, the events, the activities, and so there is that dimension which we engage in all
Mm-hmm.
the time in work, in relation. There's also
Just a second, I have to turn off something.
okay.
I'm so sorry. I had a pot on that was
Yes.
starting to boil.
Yes, I noticed that.
Okay.
There is also simultaneously a different level at which we are relating, which is more sort of sensing. You know, we're sensing the body language. We're sensing the inner dynamics within us, and even we can sense sometimes inner dynamics within the other.
Yes.
And that's this inner sensing in the relationship, I would say, is even more important than our thoughts and feelings. And you know, the term sensitivity
Mm-hmm.
and sensing refers to this this quality of reading sort of between the lines in a way, you know,
Yeah.
in relationships, because in the relationships we are not alone, and so there are
Right.
other conditions and other perceptions and
Mm-hmm.
other points of views that are being brought into the relationship, and there are various places of identification where
Mm-hmm.
there may be some areas that we hold on to, or we defend, or we experience we experience some sort of resistance around them, and we don't know them ahead of time. When we don't know them within ourselves ahead of time, or we may have some sense
Mm-hmm.
of these inner dynamics or structures within us, but also in the other, it depends on how well we know each other. We may not know quite well those inner dynamics within the other, but they come out in the relationship if you're if the relationship has a certain breadth. I'm not talking about going to the market and buying.
Right.
So also I would be open to how I perceive myself, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and also to the possibility of change, that the what I am in terms of how I'm perceived,
Mm-hmm.
not in the essence.
Mm-hmm.
I'm open for that to change. Like I remember when I was a young boy, I used to be very easily irritable.
Oh,
irritated and very nervous and irritated. So I had to really watch with Magdi, Um, it's very different now. So
mhm, mhm.
at that level, so you also are open within yourself for change, not because there is something wrong or bad with you,
Right, right.
but because there is this sort of at that level things change. And the tree, the weather, everything has that quality of.
Mhm, mhm,
It's not like it doesn't stay defined as it is. It changes.
mhm.
Uh,
In my case, in this kind of, just to be a little more graphic, it's kind of like there was the era of free love where there was not a problem,
mhm.
really.
Yes,
Then
yes,
there's the era of wanting security and comfort,
yes,
and they may be a mix, not the greatest mix.
mm, yes. You know, in terms of the era of free love, which we lived through in the '60s and maybe even the '70s, and
Mhm,
maybe beyond that, I don't know.
mhm,
Uh, if I remember well, in my experience, uh, there was sort of a, a great movement in our society, maybe throughout the whole world, of like a revolt,
mhm,
to rebel, to say
mhm,
no to the institution, to say
mhm.
no to the customs, to say no to the structure. And that's sort of like a mini, like the earth crust is moving.
Oh
It's,
yeah.
similarly in the our social, there was this sort of thing which was, that was big deal at the time. Lots of fun too, I would say.
Yeah,
um,
yeah,
that 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 had that sort of like shifting, but
yeah,
then
yeah,
it sort of reaches a new balance. It needs
yeah.
a new.
Interesting. Yeah.
So we don't. And like some people say, oh, what happened to the '60s and blah blah. No, the '60s had their place, it had their function, they had their
Uh-huh,
effect, and
uh-huh.
there's still the effect still is still going on. But we don't
Right,
stuck in the '60s. You see, we didn't stay in the '60s. A lot of
right, right,
people moved on in many other directions. Some
right,
deeper into spirituality, others in business, others in social
right.
services, etc., etc. Some into the arts and etc. Um, uh, so, uh, and you have to also keep in mind that as the times change, then also sort of there is a change in the whole society, and the individual also is experiencing that. Like
Mhm, mhm.
maybe when the world becomes more and more material, we become more and more concerned about our material being. When the world becomes more
Yes.
the flower world and free love,
Yeah.
then who cares about you sleeping in the
Right.
tent? You're happy, you're with your friends.
Mhm.
So it's a different time now than it's there are still, of course, uh, people the entire spectrum of
Yes. Yes.
about um, and I would I would I would be watchful to in the relationship to just take the other person's point of view and feelings and perceptions in mind. I wouldn't just try to. I'm not saying that you're doing that. I'm just speaking. I wouldn't just try to live my way. You see,
Mm, mhm.
because then you are part of like a very small group that they all agree that to live this way. You see, then
Mhm.
okay, you're all agreeing. You see, this is
Mhm.
how you want to live. But if you're out, uh, in the world, meeting people, relating with various, women, various partners, then of course you can be as you are, but at the same time allow them to be as they are. and
Yes, yes.
see how those two meet.
Hmm. Yeah, that's good, and that's just I like it. It's awareness, it's sensitivity, and it's more inclusive.
Yeah, and it's alive. It's dynamic. So you don't
Mm.
know. You know,
Hmm.
there is a sort of a discovery process. You know, in the way in the you know.
Hmm. To thine own self be true, and be of true to other people's self too.
Absolutely.
Maybe.
Yeah, yeah.
This reminds me of something else. When you talk about the changing of the times, kind of. Um, I watched a talk you were in that I wasn't on previously. You were asked, somebody was asking about psychedelics, I think, and it sounded like you overall were kind of saying, "Oh, I don't know, I wouldn't necessarily go there. Your self nature, your true presence is always present, and you don't need it, so why go there?" Something like that. And yet, psychedelics were so potently helpful on the spiritual dimension for a lot of us, also back in a different era. Mm, I just wonder about that, because when I talk to younger people, and especially if they're grappling with the fact that they're so interested in spirituality, but they haven't had a clear, undeniable encounter with their self nature, say, I would think to say, yeah, go for it. If people my age, it's like it takes a week to recover from such a experience, and maybe anyway, just fine.
So I would say that I can be certain
Mhm.
of speaking and sharing the teaching of reality of awareness, the reality of consciousness.
Yes,
I can be certain of that. I can speak to that with absolute certainty.
I see.
I cannot speak with the same certainty about the psychedelic.
Right.
And in my experience with the psychedelic, it 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 sort of came to me as opposed to
Oh, seeking it out
I went for it.
yes.
And um, and there was something beyond the psychedelic, of course, uh, because subsequent psychedelic trips
Mm.
were, I would say, insignificant.
Interesting.
So also in the psychedelic or in the realm of any substance,
Mm.
there is somehow the mind latches on to forms, to objects.
Yes.
Somehow it's like a dog with a smell. They can't get beyond their nose.
Right.
Something like that. There is
Yes.
something like that within the mind. So there is that possibility that of grasping
And having a pseudo, 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 profundity or something like that, something that you thinking that it's not just the finger pointing, but it's something more than a. Anyway.
Yeah. There is that possibility.
Mhm.
I would say like more a likelihood. To say
Yeah.
likelihood.
Yeah.
And also, of course, there is a lot of. It's like a coin toss.
Yeah.
A coin toss, but it's not a coin that has a head or tail. It's a coin that has 20 facets. You know.
Tossing the dice, and who knows what's going to happen.
Tossing a dice that is not just a flat. The dice. Yes, the dice. Right, like a dice with. So I would say that I think that I've shared that before, but I'm not sure which video you watched. That if you have somehow come upon the teaching or a friend who can share with you whatever their contemplation is, whatever their meditation is, I would say that's really good fortune. That to have a mentor or to have a friend. Or, I have been served in many ways by various friends who are appeared in my
Yes.
that, that were I would say spiritual mentors, spiritual friends.
Yes.
That of course a little step you don't feel it, but yet when I look at the entire string, at the time was like, it's significant, but it was part of the path, you see. So I would be pointing, not necessarily the sort of sharing satsang for them, but I would be pointing them in a direction. You have to, right? You can't tell ahead of time. It's just how you're relating with that.
Yeah.
But I would be pointing them in the direction of looking within, trying to find a peace within. That there is a peace within that can be, and that patience is a divine virtue. And of course, impatience is the me. Give it to me now. I want to have it now. So it's just practicing. Practice divine virtue of surrendering, of patience, of love. Practice. Ask yourself, because it is within yourself. Like, what am I truly? Because it is the I is yourself. So, anyways.
No, that was good. And what really made it, pretty much, it was all revealed when you said, I'm certain I can say for sure I can point somebody to awareness.
Yes.
And that's it.
Yes.
And so if they're willing, then why not? Why not make that the path?
The certainty, whatever you can be certain of, whatever you can be certain of, you can. That is, you can, and in this case, the certainty of awareness, of presence, of the formless self is absolute.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, Ananda.
Thanks.
Hi, Magdi.
Hello, Anne.
Life's very good here at the moment. There's so much peace and contentedness, and there's no cause to it. It's just what's happening at the moment. I loved your introduction. There were so many things in there that I've been getting glimpses of or realizations, and I've started to write. When I'm having a glimpse, I write it, and it seems to open it up more and deepen it somehow. I love writing when I'm in a glimpse, and I usually write with the intent of reading it after, but I don't normally read it after. But one thing that happened, there's been loads of things happening that are just amazing, but I was waking up one morning and I got a glimpse, and I don't even know how to describe it, but of a thought. A thought came up and it was totally empty, is the only way I can describe it. And
Yes.
It was so quick that I overlooked it. And it was when I was contemplating a little bit later in the morning that I felt a pull to go back to it. And it just opened up so much in terms of seeing that the whole structure of what I take to be me, of the person, is completely formed by thought and imagination only.
Yes.
That it's not real, and from that, and I've had that before, but I keep having it stronger. And from that, then a deeper understanding of how almost addictive thought is, and how much faith and trust I've put into thought as being true, when the whole thing is just a story, and it's just an overlay on the actual reality of life. And so it helps me to see that past and future are just images and thoughts, and they're not always very accurate. And you said, I think, in the beginning about thought being a master, and I was writing that as well, because I've like let it rule my life, and I've been a victim of it, and it's been my torturer, and I feel very set free from that. I can honestly say this is the only time I've ever been truly happy in my life. I've had a very difficult life and a lot of illness in the recent years, and I just feel like now there's such an opening of it's just like love. I just feel in love with life, and it's really beautiful. And I just wanted to share that. I mean, there's so many things I could say that I love. It's just nice.
Very beautiful. And I'm glad.
Yeah. So it was just wonderful listening to your introduction, because it just confirmed and said a lot of things that have been going on for me. And it helps me to hear that confirmed in words, because I'm not always that good at putting it into words, what's happening. So thank you.
Well, we meet every week. So.
Pardon?
We meet every week. Well, I mean, we are never apart, but we're talking about this so-called reminder.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. And somebody on YouTube, the name is Rena Life, says, what Anne says gives me so much hope. Thank you, Anne. Just wanted to share that with you.
Oh, that's lovely. Thank you.
You know, in the teachings, we are reminded that I am, or you are what you seek. I am what I seek. I am that I am seeking. So it's really interesting to be looking at that, because I already am that. But to somehow come to an understanding of that, a living understanding of the meaning of I am that, you cannot be something else. You cannot be this or that, because the I am that is referring to the formless self, the formless reality of being, the transparency of being. I am that. And so in our life, in our daily life, our thoughts are constantly arising, telling us, oh, I am this man, I am this woman, I want this, I don't have that. But as the thought arises, as the I am a man or I am a woman arises, just if it's possible to recollect that that is form, that to notice that I am a man refers to a form, to something, or I was this or that yesterday, or I will be this or that tomorrow. It still refers to a form. And a form is an object that you perceive, and you, the you that perceives that object, is not a form. So already I am that, but not the form. I am the formless self. That in itself, can sort of contemplate that in your life. There, that could be the stopper, yes, the stopper for the I am a man, I am a woman, I am. Somehow this I am a person is like it starts with a small snowball, and as you roll the snowball down the hill, it becomes bigger and bigger and a bigger snowball. It's got to be stopped at some point or the other, which is always now, really. It's not, it's down in the future. Right now, it's just stop it. Stop believing that the I refers to a man or a woman, that the I refers to a mother, a father, a son, a daughter, that the I refers to a body-mind. How could you be a body-mind when you're perceiving the body? You perceive the sensation, you perceive the thought. How could you be that which you perceive? Obviously, there is no denying that you perceive, but how could you be that which you perceive? You cannot be. You perceive the oak tree, you are not the oak tree. You perceive the thought, you perceive the feeling, and you perceive, oh, I am suffering, I am suffering. That I that is suffering is something that you're perceiving. It's a thought and a sensation that you're perceiving. The I that perceives, I am suffering, the I that perceives that is not suffering. But we overlook that. Somehow we overlook that I which is not suffering, and we're more identified with the I that is suffering, or that is happy now with, because I got the girlfriend I wanted, or whatever. As soon as the I becomes a form, it becomes limited. And how can you be happy and free as a limited form? All limited forms are subject to the forces of other forms. They're subject to impermanence. Impermanence. All forms, even the diamond, is subject to impermanence, to the laws of impermanence. How can a form be in peace and happy when there is the possibility of mortality, when there is the thorn of mortality? You are like a fish caught in the net. You are, what do you say, struggling. But don't feed the struggle. So you have to ask yourself, how do I live by not feeding the struggle? What is it that you're grasping? What is it that is grasping? Whatever you're grasping is impermanent. You will get it and then you will lose it. Is that what you want? If that's what you want, then okay. You can follow forms, follow relationship, then the next relationship, the next job, the next this, the next that. And then the body dies. And you're still in that same process of grasping at something and not getting fulfilled. So we may wonder, is there any other way of living besides this living in grasping, seeking, pursuing, resisting, arguing? Yes, there is. It's already happening at this very moment. Effortless being, the mind at ease, tranquil, being interested in tranquility, being interested in the peace, being interested in not just my personal peace, I want my personal peace. No. Because there is no personal to peace, there is no personal to love, there is no personal to freedom. It's universal. So to be interested in truth, in the absolute, in what's certain, in what's real, is interested in. And to live that way, to have the audacity, the courage, the willingness to live according to the principles that are absolute, and to live in the spirit of contemplation, because the contemplation is essential given we have that belief that is unhappy, the me belief is unhappy. So we need to look at that too. We need to be contemplative. And also resting as being, to rejoice, not to rejoice because you're going to the beach or you're going to the Bahamas or you're going to get this or that, just to rejoice as being, irrespective of what is happening, resting as being, recognizing and resting as this transparency, as this ease, as this freedom. Ah, yes. Whichever way it speaks to you, whichever way there's a formula about it. To allow yourself to be imbued with the grace of being, the freedom, not the constant, oh, what do I need? What am I doing? What's going to happen tomorrow? What's happening after tomorrow? What should I do? What should I have? What's going to happen to me? Will this happen? Will that happen? So in your contemplation, at some point, it's resting as being, sort of sinking deeper and deeper into presence, into the stillness, into the bliss of being, not knowing the mind, being released into not knowing. When something arises, you tend to it, but you don't obsess about it. You tend to it and then you let it go. You trust. You trust. Just the appropriate response without judgment, without judging yourself or the other. The appropriate response and watching where you are responding from. Are you responding from the emotion? Gotta do it. I hope I get it right. Or you're just responding from the situation that's arising. You're looking at it best you can. You explore it. You look at it. But without this sense of urgency, without this sense of threat or there's something at stake. So in living the Dharma, you are honoring the Dharma. The Dharma is a lived Dharma, let's say. It's not a dry Dharma. It's fresh and it's alive. It's moment by moment, not knowing, moment by moment. It's not a story. It's not, how am I doing? It's not that, because there is no time in fact. It's just the freshness of being, the freedom of being, freedom from the impression of time. And all the worries that come with time, the worries, the concerns. Any questions? Oh, Rena writes on the YouTube, I also feel a victim of my thoughts. Rena, your thoughts appear to you. So when you feel a victim of your thoughts, somehow the thoughts that appear to you have a power over you. They are running you, they're your master. How is that occurring? Somehow you must feel that there is something in thought that is threatening to you, for you to be their victim. The thought is like a passing cloud. In fact, we're not victims of our thoughts. Maybe we feel more a victim of our feelings. I can comprehend that a little bit more because it just comes into the body. It's like we feel, what's going to happen to me? But even that, even at the feeling level, it's empty. To see the emptiness of the feeling. Look at that. Take a look at that. You have to get closer to the feeling. Because when you're standing at a distance from the feeling, it feels like it's a wolf or a lion that's coming at you. But when you get closer to the feeling, you see it's completely empty and transparent, like a cloud that has the shape of a lion, but from a distance. But when you get close, you will see it's empty. And what is the most troubling thought, Rena, is the I am this person. I am Rena. I am this woman, this person. When you constantly thinking of perceiving yourself as a person, there is a feeling of vulnerability that's in the space. There is a feeling of danger, of impermanence. It's, oh my God, what's going to happen to me? So the thoughts, they come to reinforce that, yes, you are a woman, yes, you are a person, and something may happen to you if you don't, ... if you don't get money, get a job, get a husband, get a wife, get whatever. So the first virus is in believing that I am a person. And then when you're the person, then the thoughts are referring to you as a person, because the thoughts are arising within you. So they're arising within you. You already are infected with the initial thought, I'm a person. And so the thought that arises within you is arising through this infection, via this infection. And it's arising saying, hey, what's going to happen to you tomorrow? And the you that is the thought is referring to is you, the person. Because a thought never arises saying, what's going to happen to you, consciousness, you, presence? What's going to happen to you, consciousness, tomorrow? There's no consciousness. There is no tomorrow for consciousness. There is no tomorrow for presence. There is no tomorrow for the reality of being. So you need to look at that. Look at your assumption about what you are, which is the initial I thought. Contemplate this whole sense of danger. What is it that is feeling threatened? What is it? Look at it. Look at it. Get closer. Get really close to it. Any questions?
Magdi?
Hello, Zoe.
Hi. I would like to hear you speak. You've spoken about this once before, but I was reading or no, listening to an Eckhart Tolle tape, and he talked about having to leave England and go to, like, this sudden urge arose to go to California, and that's where he was able to write his book. And when he went back to England, the energy wasn't there for him to do that. And could you talk? I mean, it on some level, it doesn't quite make sense that one place would have this energy and another place wouldn't, if all is the self. And, partly that has to do with something that I asked you before when I was with you in retreat in Costa Rica, and about, the particular place that I'm living in, and you mentioned something about that as well. So can you speak more about that?
Mm-hmm. Well, from the absolute perspective, all is well, irrespective of space and time, irrespective of thoughts, irrespective of sensations, irrespective of any memory you're having, irrespective of any creative thought you're having, irrespective of any world event. all is well. And this all is well, from the absolute perspective, is the complete absence of any separate self. And in this all is well, there is no one writing a book, there is no one traveling to California, there is no England, there is no here, and there is no there. It's just what is. And that is not a phenomenal event. That is not a perception. That is not a book. That is not an inspiration. It's beyond all of that. It has nothing to do with all of that. Having said that, in the realm of mind, in the realm of the dream, where the book is written, and in the realm of dream, where one travels from place A to place B. So many places I've traveled in my dreams.
I know it is. It is a dream. It's like, wow, I come back home. I'm like, wow, what was that?
What is it that travels? It's a good question.
Yeah.
What is it? What is it that travels? Yes. What is it that travels? So in the relative perspective, yes, it could be that I am in England and I don't know, maybe I'm living in London and there is noise and activities and this and that, and there is places where some friends live that I have all sorts of energetic pasts with them, and all sorts of mind stuff may be possible, may be happening in London, and somehow there is this book writing thoughts and feelings that are arising, and interest, that is arising. And California or Hawaii or maybe the village in England that's 40 miles away up in the hills, where the friend has a house that I can stay in and be quiet. And so in writing a book, I haven't written any book, but I write a lot, as you know, not books. But, it depends, but I would say for writing a book, you need to have some quiet and some focus, some concentration. Also, a place where you can have some inspiration. So California somehow turned out to be the place for Eckhart Tolle to write his book. There's nothing magical about California. Sorry, Tara. I'm probably going to have a conversation about this one later.
Stay here, Tara.
But I love California.
Yeah, I do too. So,
okay. There. So, yeah, but it's nothing, so mystical or magical about California. And yet, having said that, in California, somehow there are more people who are interested in, in the outdoors, in taking care of the environment, in a certain sort of celebration of the spirit and of relationships. And it's around Washington D.C. It's more politics and money, So
yeah,
the hub here,
yeah.
This is so. Yes, there are, for example, places around the beach where the energy is quite different from being in Manhattan, you know, in New York City, or and yet, yes, you are right. It's at the absolute level, you know, you are well where you are. In fact, I spent 12 years living in New York City, the city of concrete, cement, asphalt, and buildings, you know. And it was a time, you know, where it was not a place where meditation and contemplation was not possible, not at all. It was definitely part of my path, and at some point, it needed to change. Was enough of this sort of environment and more space and nature, and somehow. So at the body mind level, you are where you are, doing what you're doing, because that's how the path is unfolding.
Okay.
You're so that's completely impersonal, but your good fortune would be when you hear the Dharma and you start to grasp the Dharma, like you, of course, you have, and you start to contemplate the reality, what is real, the reality of, of isness, of beingness, the reality of the self. What is it that is real? And so this discernment becomes more and more important in your life. You discern between what is real, what is mind. Mind. London is mind. England is mind. Hawaii is mind. Virginia is mind. Body mind is mind.
And yet, you know, there's this other thing about being in the physical presence of the teacher too, right? That's a whole.
That goes beyond mind.
Yeah, because you know, it's like the addiction to being a person gets. I mean, it has to dissolve in the presence of the teacher who's rooted in stillness.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I understand your.
Well, I guess what I'm saying is, you know, okay, so this whole talk about energetics, but the being around the teacher is not
Yes.
in that realm of, it's a different.
Yes, right.
Okay.
So being in the presence of the teacher is being in the presence of grace, and so you know, grace comes upon you, and it sort of blooms within you, and you it dissolves ignorance within. Um, being in the presence of teacher, being in the presence of the self appearing as a person. In India, is called the Guru. They use the term Guru. I don't forgot what Guru exact meaning of the term, but being in the
I
present.
think it's remover of darkness or something like that.
So it's only the self. It's the impersonal self that is the removal of darkness. It's not a person. Yes, but we understand that. I think we've talked about it quite a bit. So being in the presence of the teacher is a very high grace. Very high grace. You will find yourself in the presence of a teacher, of in a rubbing elbows with a teacher and interacting, interfacing with the teacher in a very dynamic way, let's say. Not usually initial, not along your initial journey, but towards the later part of your journey, towards the end of your journey, towards the later part of your journey. And it could be, I don't mean the later year, or it could be a few years, it could be even a lifetime, it could be a whole lifetime. But it's still towards the end of your journey that you come to be with the teacher, and it's a high grace. I would say it's the highest grace. It's the highest grace. It's the highest grace. It's the highest grace to be with the living Dharma, with the living teacher. And the higher grace than that is to be the self, to be knowingly the self. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you all for your love and your lovely company, and we say happy holidays, Merry Christmas, because that's what's happening next, right? It's Christmas, right? Isn't it Monday? Yes. So we'll get together after the holidays. Best to you all.
Thank you, Magdi.
Okay.
Yeah.
Esther. Okay.
Thank you, Magdi. Merry Christmas.
Yes, Merry Christmas to you too, Esther and Gabi, Ananda, Zoe, everybody.